Hello, everybody, and welcome to Adobe Live. My name is Flynn. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode. I'm delighted to be joined once again by designer and strategist and podcast. And I think we were talking beforehand, podcast editor, podcast creator, content creator, everything, Anika Aggarwal. Hi, Anika. How are you?
Good, thank you. Hi, Flynn. How's it going?
Good. As I was talking about, I was just realizing all the things that we were talking about just before we went live. And yeah, talking about like
Yeah,
editing podcasts, doing your own podcast, like creating content, live streaming, all sorts of stuff. So it's a busy time in Anika's world, it seems.
yeah. No, I'm happy to be busy. I think 2025 is off to a good start. I just launched my new podcast. I'm excited to talk all things new in Adobe Express. Just launched at Max London last week,
Yeah.
which is actually super exciting. An exciting time for podcast hosts and podcasters in general. So I'm really happy to dive into it.
I'm really keen as well. Yeah, some of those announcements that happened. Of course, I hope everybody here has watched Max. If you haven't, go and check it out. Max London happened last week, and of course, like a lot of Max events, lots of announcements, lots of different things to play with, and we're going to be touching on some of those today with Anika, which is really exciting. And yes, the exact same one. I don't have a podcast that I'm on at the moment, but I do edit some for clients, and I'm very interested in some of these hacks that we might have. But let's share your screen, Anika. And actually, we have Max up here. So, yeah, how was your Max
Yeah.
experience?
Yeah, I think I really like the keynote and all the new features released. One of my personal favorites was definitely Firefly boards,
Yeah.
which if no one has watched this keynote, the code is GS1-2, and this is a definite watch because it's something that is so useful for brand designers, and you can create mood boards. I think it's one of the things that we've been looking for so long, just because so many of us use Firefly for like mood boarding process and inspiration.
Mm.
So I feel like this is such a perfect fit in that. And with that, I know Liz Mosley, who was also presenting with Andy at Max, talked about a lot of new Express features as well, which we're also going to dive into today.
Yeah, she's the one that got me so super hyped on it. And I know that she was really excited because she has a podcast as well. So,
Yeah.
yeah, super keen. And yeah, the boards thing I think is really great as well because I'm such a visual person. Like my desktop
Hmm.
is a mess. Like things are kind of clustered
Yeah.
together. Like I really like that rather than, I
Yeah.
obviously have my proper file management systems for other stuff, but I just love being able to visually organize things, particularly
Yeah.
when I'm trying to be a little bit creative. Like I want to kind of go in different directions and stuff. So yeah, this is I think going to be really well received by the creative community. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. No, it is a personal favorite. I need to experiment with it more. And you can join the waitlist if you go to adobe.com/, this long URL. But if you just look up Firefly mood boards on Google, this will pop up and then you can join the waitlist. I think this is super cool. I do have access to it. It's just a different URL that I can't show here on the live stream.
Right. Cool.
Um, but I'm excited. Yeah. With that said, I know Liz. We mentioned Liz briefly, and I'm happy to share that I'm actually editing the podcast with that I recorded with Liz.
Cool. Great.
So yeah, it's kind of like a full circle moment. So I had Liz on my podcast. This is behind the scenes where I actually haven't released this episode. This is the next episode, so we're editing that together. We are going to dive into Adobe Express, where we talk about my podcast, which is Able Heads. I actually launched it last month, where I talk to creatives about their journey and how they're doing things differently, especially in the age of AI.
Cool.
It's obviously available at everywhere you get your podcast, which is Apple Podcast and Spotify. But let's dive into Adobe Express and let's see what we can cook up in the few minutes that we have here.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. And is it new.adobe express? New.express.adobe.com. Does that just take you there
Mhm.
naturally now? I remember sometimes when there's updates, sometimes there's a beta link, sometimes it's different version, but that's just, yeah. Okay. So that's just the
Yeah,
URL. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I think I was on it from a different project and I just clicked the back icon.
Yeah.
That's why the URL was different. But if you just go to new.express.adobe.com, that should redirect you to the homepage, which we love and are familiar with. So yeah, just to give a little context, I have some assets here that I'll be referencing throughout the stream, which are just not shared on the screen, but if I'm dragging and dropping something, it'll be from here. And again, if you are watching this live or on a replay, you have my cursor here, and all of my keystrokes will be visible here for
Very
accessibility. I
cool.
always have to add those. Yeah, so let's start with Clipmaker and how you can find it. And the one thing that I love about having the homepage is that it learns from your interests and what you used probably recently, and so Clip Maker has popped up here up top. But if not for you, and if you haven't ever used it, you can click the plus icon and then look up Clip Maker, and obviously it pops up here. So I'm going to click on this, and the way that it works is that you can upload a video file anywhere between a minute and 2 hours, and it's supposed to be 1 GB in size. So I did have to size my video down a little just to get the quality for social clips. And obviously, since this is to be viewed on a phone, it doesn't really need to be 4K because Instagram and other social apps already downsize your
Yep.
content anyway.
So get
So
familiar with Media Encoder or
yeah,
some, Handbrake or something.
definitely.
Yeah, you got to get familiar with
Yeah.
like crunching
So
those like 20 GB video files down for
mhm.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I typically like the 4K things because I have a video podcast. So I think
Right.
that's one of the things that I really like to do, just record in high resolution because that can be scaled down,
Mm.
but not scaled up necessarily in the best possible way. Of course, now things can be scaled up when it comes to images, but not really video. So let's click and drag my video here and let Clipmaker do its thing. It does take a little bit because it's an hour long video and it's 700 MB here. So while the Clipmaker generates my clips for me and adds captions for me using AI built into Adobe Express, I will be showcasing other new features as well. So let's go ahead and click generate clips and see what happens. So it is uploading. It is still at 1%. So I was not kidding when I said it's going to take a while.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, it's doing it quickly. That is awesome. So
That's
maybe
actually
we can
really
stay
quick.
here. Yeah, yeah, that is really quick. Maybe it has it in the cache memory because I tried it yesterday just to have a backup in
Yeah,
case this doesn't
nice.
work
I was going to say, yeah,
live.
because sometimes, we're trying to
Yeah,
generate things live and yeah, it decides to
yeah.
take a really, really long time. But yeah, that was super quick.
Yeah. So I think it has uploaded, but then it'll clip, and then the third process is reviewing, where you can review the clips that Adobe Express has made for you, or the clip maker in Adobe Express has made for you, and also edit your caption styles. So now we're at the second step, which is clipping, and we can now. The great part about this is that you can now close this dialog box, and you don't need to be here. You can work on other things in a new window or in this tab. Doesn't matter, and it'll notify you, or you can reopen a new project that has been created.
And
So the video is being analyzed. I'm going to click on the X button
I was going to
and
add
just go to
something
my
to that
stuff.
really, really quick. Just when we're doing things in After Effects or on your computer, like you're crunching, like everything's happening. This is
Yeah.
happening in the cloud,
Yeah.
presumably. So it allows your computer to be freed up, like your GPU and your CPU and your internet connection to do other things, as you said. So if you do
Yeah.
have something long, it's a really great way to kind of batch like your
Yeah.
life out. Like it's like, okay, great. Adobe's taking care of that. And then I'm gonna go
Yeah.
and, do all the other million things that I have to do today.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's exactly what we're going to do here. So, like every podcast, we need to promote it.
Yeah.
So, we're going to create a promotional asset for our podcast as well, just to showcase how I can animate that with one click in Adobe Express.
Mm.
And this was also one of the new features released at Max London. So, what I'm going to do is essentially start with Illustrator, and I have this file set up here, which is just an artboard, which is 1080 by 1350 pixels. The Instagram portrait post size, which is also the new size. I have Liz's headshot here, which I'm gonna scale up just like so, just so that it fits. Maybe I'll center line that, and that's my brand or the podcast logo, which I'm gonna scale down. Obviously, right now this is very quick and simple, so we're not gonna think about how it's gonna look. We actually talked about pitching yourself and the rejection challenge with Liz. So the
Right.
podcast was about it. And so I'm gonna say the rejection challenge. This is super tiny, but I'm gonna scale that up really quickly. Um, Here, and I'm also gonna change the color. I'm using New Spirit just because my brand font is actually Enter, but for some reason it's not working here today. So
Right.
I'm just gonna use New Spirit just because I like the retro kind of vibe with it. Yeah, we
There
have the
were, I
title.
think, just adding in, I think it was almost a stealth drop, but there's like I think 150,000 like new fonts or something as well
Yeah,
available that were
yeah,
announced that I don't think many people picked up, but I noticed
yeah,
like
yeah.
someone talk about, and I was like, oh my god, like there's so many more fonts now, and a whole bunch of new font foundries as well have joined. Adobe
Yeah,
fonts, which is
I
super cool.
actually love that. I love that you brought it up because everybody is like a font holder
Yeah,
here in the community too,
right.
which I actually love. And it's a positive compliment. I am a font holder myself, so I have like 1,500 fonts. Even though I use the same 10, I still
Yeah,
have those just because I want it.
yeah,
I want
exactly.
everything. Maybe I'll do like an enter. Yeah, somehow enter is working here. I guess maybe it wasn't working in Express, and that's why I just decided to
Yeah,
have that here. So I have like new episode and then the episode title, which obviously this is different from the actual title of the podcast episode. And then the one thing that I want to showcase is like call to action on my promo as well. So if you upload your podcast on Apple Podcast or Spotify, their marketing tools actually gives you access to these SVG files, which you can then use in accordance to the brand guidelines. So I downloaded those beforehand, and then I'm gonna paste these here just so I have that somewhere on my
looks official.
canvas. Yeah, it looks official.
Mm,
Yeah, you're not messing about.
yeah,
I am gonna go here and see if I can size that to the same size. And the only reason I'm doing this in Illustrator is because I did not actually create a brand library for my podcast yet. I'm in the process of doing that and just allocating all those resources to that. Um, so that's why I'm making this in Adobe Express, but Adobe Illustrator. But you can obviously do this in Express as well if
yeah.
you had a brand already set up, which I don't personally right now. So we're doing this here. And obviously the legibility here is a little compromised, but we'll fix that in Express as we transfer. So I'm going to save on my computer really quickly in my downloads. I'm going to say Liz Live. Sorry, typo. I'm going to say Liz Live and click OK. And then I'm going to jump into Express and see where we're at. I'm actually going to close some of these tabs. Feels like it's getting so populated here.
It's my
Um,
life.
all
Just
right.
open tabs,
Yeah. Yeah. Too many. Too many.
always.
How many is too many is the real question.
Once your computer
Um,
starts like not working, that's when you
yeah,
have to go back a month to your first tab
yeah,
and revise.
yeah, yeah. Okay, just keeping an eye on the clip maker. It is analyzing the video. It's at 15%, so we're still good to go for our project.
Cool.
Okay, let me drag and drop my new file that I just created, which is just lizlive.ai. So I'm going to start from my content and drag that in. Now, you can either place this as a linked image, which I don't want because I don't want this to be a copy and be a linked image. And you can sync your design, but I'm going to make changes to my design in Adobe Express. So I'm just going to convert it to an Adobe Express file.
Right.
Um, and while we are featuring on the new features, I just want to lay emphasis on some of the features that are important and I feel like are so handy when it comes to creating stuff with Adobe Express. And this was one of them. So you can start with your own content. You can use images, videos, you can use AI, which is Illustrator, Photoshop, InDesign files as well, which I think is super handy.
Mm.
Yeah, the image seems like it's logged for some reason.
Hmm.
That's interesting. Oh, because it was an embed. So, yeah, that's how it transferred into Adobe Express because it was not embedded, it was a linked image. That's why the quality kind of looks bad. So, what I'm going to do is delete that and just drag and drop a
A
photograph
new
here.
one in.
I
Yeah.
should have embedded that. Yeah, that's
So,
good to know.
and the assets like came through as different assets, right? That wasn't just one flat kind of JPEG or anything. Like each
Yeah,
individual asset was
yeah,
dragged in
everything
from
is on
Illustrator.
its own layer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you did lose the font because it's not in,
Yep.
yeah, in here at the moment.
Yeah. Let's use SF Pro. I have uploaded that, so maybe I can use that. What happened here? Yeah, everything is gibberish
Coming
just
through
because
as
the font
gibberish.
didn't. Yeah. Okay, let me.
I'd never seen
Yeah,
that
I think.
before. It was like circles and
Yeah,
lines and
that
stuff. That
yeah,
was a
that is,
new
I think
thing.
that might be a new thing too.
Mm,
I haven't seen that either. I feel like my podcast logo has disappeared too. Or is it? Oh, it's right here.
it's hiding.
Okay. I feel like this is also not the right
Is it grayed
colors.
out?
Let me I feel like it might be. I think it just happened because the image was not embedded.
Right.
Um, let's see if I have that here. Yeah, I can bring that in too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
it
lost the
did
blackness.
do.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
gone like almost a screen, like
Yeah.
filter over the top or something. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, indeed. I did not expect that. That is too big. All right. So the good thing is that you can also actually see how far your assets are. So what I'm gonna do is make it 96 or 86. Sorry, my bad. 86 on each side from the top and bottom. And then similarly, I'll do that for this image as well, if I can. Here. So you can hold Option on your keyboard, which I'm doing right now, just to see how far it is. It is not perfect, but we're going to leave that just for the sake of time. All right. And the way that I can add contrast and legibility to this text so that this text is actually good, I can go to my add-ons, which I wonder why I can't see it here. Oh, it's because of my annotate button on this file screen sharing.
Oh, there's something on
But
your
here's the
screen that's hiding it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But if you browse through the left navigation panel and click on add-ons, look up gradients. That's actually a very neat add-on that I recently figured out. So with gradients, you can actually control linear, radial, or conic gradients and add that to your page. And you can also add the starting and ending color. So I'm going to add a horizontal gradient with a white starting color and an almost black ending color, and then I'm going to add that to my page, which just adds a new layer to your file.
Right.
And then I'm going to change the opacity to multiply and then bring that below the text. So what that does is essentially brings this gradient sort of, which kind
Yeah.
of makes the text legible and without compromising the quality of the photograph.
Yeah.
So yeah,
That's interesting.
yeah, I think I'm happy with that. And now the only thing left here is to animate all of that. So I'm gonna select all of this, click on animation, and click on animate all. And we have a few options here. You can click on bloom and see what happens. And then here's bloom. Oh,
So
I
this is
guess the
animating in, right? So it animates uh, from from 0 to kind of 100, and then it's
yeah,
frozen on that. So it's like an image is populating in an
yeah,
interesting way.
yeah, exactly. So I'm like, oh, that is Bloom. We couldn't see the whole thing earlier because the duration of the clip or the image wasn't
Right.
um long enough for it to show all the animation. So that's why I went to my timeline and increased that. And then I'm just gonna experiment with some of these just to see how that looks. The gradient kind of interferes with this one just because it also glides into the image. If I go back, you can kind of see
Yeah.
that edge, which I don't like. Let's do pop. Ooh, that kind of creates an interesting effect. Let's do sunrise. Okay, I actually like that. You know what? I'm kind of thinking that maybe I should import these as single images and not as separate layers because it was an SVG. It uploaded into and converted into Express as layers, even the letters, and that might be compromising the brand guidelines for Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and we don't want to do that.
Mm.
So I will do this in my own time, but just as a showcase of how Animate works, Animate all works, we can use some other effects here as well. So waterfall, and just imagine that this was just image. Okay, just imagine that for
Yeah.
for this demo.
So
But yeah,
with animate all, if you decide that you didn't want one thing to animate, for example, like the gradient, can you then go in and click that one and then remove the animation from that separately?
yes, you can.
You can.
So I
Okay,
clicked on the
cool. So that's quite a
gradient.
good way to start, like as a starting point to say, hey, let's bulk animate everything in and then
Yeah.
tweak from there. That'll probably save you quite a lot of time than starting from scratch and
Yep.
individually clicking everything and then animating it. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
And I think that kind of goes into our previous conversations and lives as well, where we talk about how not to have jarring animations in your work as well.
Yeah.
So just having everything uniform and have one kind of animation, change the durations to make it look natural. I think this might be helpful in something like that too. So I did actually go ahead, select my gradient, made it from the beginning so that it looks like it was always there, and then remove the animation there. So I'm gonna hit play and see what happens. And now it seems like it was always there, and the gradient is not animating. So yeah, that's a good catch.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so that was one of the features, and now we can go back to our clip maker. Okay, it is taking its time, so we still have time to do other things, which is exciting.
Cool.
So yeah, I know that the stream description probably says we're gonna talk about generate video and generate image as well, which we will. But I was so excited about using generative video that I used my 2 free credits on the premium plan.
Right.
And I didn't have time earlier today to get licenses. So if I want a plan that does not have access to premium generative features, can I try them out? Yes, you can at home watching. You have 2 free generations. And then if you need more licenses, obviously video takes 100 credits to create. And I think I that expired when I was testing stuff out. So while we won't be showcasing generative video, there are a few clips and sessions at Adobe Max London, which you can watch on replay to see it in action. I will be showcasing how that actually looks with a couple of videos that I made. So I'm gonna browse to that really quickly. Yeah, I think I use this. So I started with this Adobe stock image. Oh, hold on, it's so big. Here. Oh my God, it disappeared. Okay. My Mac is trying really hard to work. Yeah, okay. So I started with this Adobe stock image, which I just looked up a podcast to set up, and
That looks
this is a
really similar
license.
to what my setup looks like right now. Actually, that's kind of weird. The microphone's
Yeah.
not gold and I don't have a clock, but everything else is almost spot on. Wow.
I mean,
Okay.
maybe we added that using Firefly, and
Yeah.
maybe this is your setup. Who
Right.
knows?
Oh my gosh.
Um, yeah.
Spooky. There's a camera behind me.
Yeah, this is a Black Mirror episode now. No,
Yeah.
I'm kidding. No, that was just a reference. Anyway, so I took these images as a starting point for generate video, which you can actually find under the generative AI tab here at the bottom. So you go to generative AI, click on video, and click on generate video. This little thing pops up if you've ever used generate image in Adobe Express, something similar but just for video. And then you type in your prompt and select how your camera moves into the image. And I experimented with 2 of these, zoom in and zoom out, just to see how everything looks. And I use the same exact image and give it a prompt, just like desk setup, moving in and moving out. And did not select the shot size and camera angle. I just let that be. Obviously, my complementary generations have expired, so I can't real time showcase that. But what I can do is replay some of the things that I created. So I'm gonna click on play, and yeah, this is what we made. We're zooming out in the second one, and we're okay. That was spoiler for what I'm gonna showcase next.
Right.
But this is what I created, which is just a 5 second video generation. The top one is zooming in from the image that I started, and the bottom one is zooming out. And I kind of like how it actually showed the boom arm here, and then the speaker. And this information was not provided by me.
Right.
Firefly actually got it on its own. And it started from this in both the scenarios. And then the first one is zooming in, which obviously is quite simple if you already have that information in your image that you're starting from. But zooming out is what kind of gave me goosebumps. And I'm like, wow, that is super cool.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So similar in the way that generative expand would work in
Hmm.
Photoshop or something like that that we might be familiar with. This is doing that,
Yeah.
but it's obviously creating 20 or 30 frames every second, and
Yeah.
then creating that like animation. It's funny. It's interesting when I've played with it as well. I've noticed that it's really really good at the gradual zooms and things. So like panning shots,
Yeah.
really good.
Hmm.
Like zooming in and
Hmm.
zooming out. It's been really really good. I've found those use
Yeah.
cases to be the best as well.
Yeah, I think this is something that can be so useful in like product photography. And
Mm,
if you are a photographer and then you wanted to add some motion to it, not only by motion graphics, you can also do that with video content in case you forgot to film something. And it just as works like an asset and a tool at that point where you're like, oh, I can actually use Adobe Firefly or Adobe Express to generate something that I forgot on set. Because obviously you can't recreate the set and get all the crew together again and recreate necessarily the light settings or the audio settings.
mm.
And so something like this is so perfect for something in that use case.
I think
I
also
also want to
just like
point out,
reframing as
sorry, go
well.
ahead.
Yeah, just also reframing as well is such a big thing. Like if something's shot in a certain way or is with a
Yeah,
certain width camera, and you just need that extra thing, and you don't want the windowing or the boxing, like the black lines on the
yeah,
side and stuff. It can make it much
yeah,
more professional version of that without stretching or doing something else. So I think that's going to be
yeah.
a pretty useful case now and down the
Yeah,
track too.
absolutely. Um, I actually just wanted to point out firefly.adobe.com as well while we are talking about Adobe Express and the Firefly features built in Adobe Express. If you have firefly.adobe.com, you can also go ahead and make image to video here as well. So that's something, if you've ever used this, we are basically looking at that, but in Adobe Express.
Yeah.
So if you didn't have Firefly, you can actually go ahead here and create something in Adobe Express, which actually takes away from going to this tab and then going to this button and then clicking on one thing. In Adobe Express, everything is seamless where it is still using the same technology, which is great and something we rely on,
Mm.
and produces commercially safe outcomes here and outputs. And then I can use these in my projects directly from here,
Yeah.
which is awesome.
Cool. Love it.
Yeah, I'm gonna take a quick look at the clip maker. Okay,
Ooh,
we're at
80%.
80%. We're good.
Oh, it
Yeah.
just it just jumped so many times. Did you see that?
Yeah.
It hurt
Oh,
us.
it's 90, 95. Oh, yeah, we're almost there. Okay, let's stay at the screen and then we can jump into generate
Wow.
image, which
Cool.
will be our last new feature. I think generate image is the last one. Yeah. Okay, so clip maker is done clipping our 1 hour long clip, which was our podcast episode.
Yeah.
I have information here which says a disclaimer: AI generated outputs may be inaccurate or misleading. Be sure to double check the title and description of each clip. So, what this means is that sometimes the AI models takes information from what you said, but due to certain linguistic things or accents, there might be some mistakes in the system learning how. Sorry, didn't mean to play that. I don't know if you can hear that actually. Did I share my sound? I'm not too sure if I did.
Press play. We'll see.
Um,
No.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna quickly see if I can share my sound here from my end.
Sure. While you're doing that, this sounds super interesting to me. Like, this is such a hard thing to do. Anika and I were just talking before Adobe Live. This is something that will be really great to do for Adobe Live. But
Yeah,
because the content is like an hour long, we do so many every week. Like, it's a really
yeah,
long process to kind of clip something down, find the right
yeah,
thing, and then export it and all. And if this is the beginning of solving a solution to that, I'm extremely excited about this this feature,
yeah.
especially with the automatic captions. Like, I think that's a huge thing.
Yeah, this is the outcome of our clipping mechanism. I did share my sound, so you should be able to
Okay.
listen to that. Let's test it. I'm gonna hit play, and you can let me know if you can hear. We'll do that, and we'll talk about where
Yep.
can people find you on the internet. But what is the one design rule that you love breaking? Okay, so we'll explore a little bit of that. I'm not gonna give everything away, but we are talking about rapid fire insights in this version, in this for 67-second clip, and which is really nice because it kind of generates the captions for you, puts it top and bottom, which is exactly what I wanted because I wanted emphasis on the speaker and then the host. And then we have a second clip which gives you titles, which I think is super cool because this is so useful for caption generation and just thinking about what you want to focus on in this social clip.
Mm.
And I think this is such a neat way to actually promote the actual episode of maybe a podcast or a live stream or Adobe Live or any of the videos that you've created for your YouTube or even Instagram before. And then so the clip maker actually went ahead and created all of these, and I think there are about 10. Yeah, there are about 10, and you can sort by quality rating, duration, chronological order, or reverse order. So I'm going to sort by duration, and the smallest clip we have here is 41 seconds. If you didn't like the look, you can obviously go ahead and play all of these here, like the creative roller coaster and unexpected opportunities. You can actually go ahead and discard some of these clips right from here before actually making it into an Adobe Express project.
Yeah.
And then the other things that you can do is change the caption text as well. So I can expand this little text area. And as I play through, this caption actually changes here. So if there is some error in caption generation as well, I can go ahead and change that. For instance, I do want to add quotation marks here in the caption as well. So maybe I do that here,
Right.
right? So as simple as that, you just have to type that in, and that actually reflects it in real time. The other thing that you can do here is select a style for your captions, which is really neat. You can go ahead and do rapid. So let's see how that changes.
There's a lot of options there. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I think these are all the options that we can actually see from the generate captions
Mm.
quick action as well. So I think this is picked up from that and it's using the same technology, which is also in Adobe Express. So I think it is neat to see that same interface.
Mm.
Just that familiarity kind of builds. I guess I
So I just try
love
and make sure that I have a balance. Like sometimes I'll be like, okay, I'm going to make this video because it'll be really helpful for people.
And so Rapid did that thing with the social clips, which is like super popular, where one or two words come up and as you're speaking and not just a full line.
Yeah.
And I think that's my personal favorite just because it keeps you engaged the whole time because there's always something moving and it's not too much, but it's
Mm.
still enough to keep you captured. So yeah, let's go with that. You can also customize colors here. So you can change the text color. Obviously, this doesn't have any background. You can't change the shadow. So maybe we'll change the shadow to see how that looks.
You might
Let
need
me go
it
through it.
to pop so that it makes it a little bit more
Yeah,
legible, right? Depending on what the
yeah.
background is and things like that.
Exactly. I did purple, but I don't think I can see it because I can't zoom in here. But as we click on open in editor, which I will do in just a second, Clip Maker is making it into an Adobe Express project. It's saving that here. Sorry, there might be. Yeah, there we go. It's a lot of clips. And it's saving that here, and now this is ready to go, and you can edit. Everything is customizable still, so I'm going to show you how that looks. Let me double click into this first page. This is the one that I edited. And obviously, this is giving away a little bit of the episode, but we love to share here, so
So I
we're
just try
fine.
and make sure that I have a balance. Like sometimes I'll
I wonder if you can change the audio levels here too. Yeah, you can. So you can go ahead and change the volume. I'm
That's
just going
cool.
to do that because we're at a live stream and it might be too loud. So I'm going to click
So I
play.
just try and make sure that I have a balance. Like sometimes I'll be like, okay, I'm going to make this video because it'll be really helpful for people. And sometimes I'm like, I'm going to make this silly
Can
video
you?
because it's
It
going to
says
amuse
speed. What happens
me,
when
and
you speed that up? Does it speed up the whole video over the left?
Ooh, that is so
Let's see if
interesting.
we can
Yeah,
have super
I
fast video.
guess. Yeah.
okay, I'm going to make this video because it'll be really helpful.
There you
Oh my
go.
God, it does. That's awesome. Yeah, you can speed up your videos as well. I did actually try this, so that's cool. You can actually speed it up. You can decrease the volume. You can adjust the colors here as well, the color adjustments and corners, and obviously the position and opacity. You can add effects to it, which is really cool.
Oh,
You can
enhanced
use
speech is there
all.
too. Sorry, I just noticed.
Sorry, go ahead.
Somewhere in edit.
Yeah,
Sorry, it was enhanced speech. I noticed is a new tab there. Sorry, you're probably about to get
yeah,
to that, and I
yeah.
just interrupted you. Sorry.
Yeah, no, no, no. Enhanced speech is also one of the features that is really cool. So if there's an audio issue at the time of recording, or there might be like low audio, you can click on enhance. Um, speech which supports less than 30 minutes in length, which is one of
Mm.
the things that might be something to note if you have a video that's longer than 30 minutes, but you can upload your videos which are less than 30 minutes and use enhanced speech. Obviously, I feel like that is too long of a video for the AI to go in and edit on its own,
Yeah.
just because this is a web app at the end of the day, and it does take a huge amount of power for the cloud to process all of that. So yeah, I would recommend something like Premiere Pro and using that, and maybe even Audition for stuff like that, or even Adobe Podcast. So I feel like this is a good place for us to actually go ahead and select our captions. So these captions are essentially layers here in this project. And if I double click into this, it's a layer group, and I can place these anywhere I want on the canvas. Now, I don't want to change the positioning of it individually. So I'm just going to select that group and maybe position it here at the bottom here and then see how that looks. What I'm going to do is also decrease the volume quite a bit. So let's hit play and see what happens.
so I just try and make sure that I have a balance. Like sometimes I'll be like, okay, I'm going to make this video because it'll be really helpful for people. And sometimes I'm like, I'm going to make this silly video.
Yeah, and
Cool.
then since this was cut off by Adobe Express, maybe it thought that that's the end of it. I can also extend it because it's keeping the whole video in here.
Mm.
And that is exactly why Enhanced Speech thought that this was still 60 minutes long, because it is actually 60 minutes long. It's just not showing up in the timeline. You're still
Right.
editing that. You've just cropped it
Because
there.
it's going to
I see.
amuse me and I like it.
And that's where I want to end it. And I like it. And then I want to put in my call to action like, hey, new episode out now, stream
Right.
wherever
Or
you
you could have some
listen to the
sort of
podcast.
animation, or you could have some sort of call to
Yeah.
action, whatever it is. Yeah, you
Yeah,
can add
maybe I
that
can
in.
use the one that I just created here and then add that as a scene in the Adobe Express project. So maybe you can add something like this at the end, listen on Apple Podcasts and listen on Spotify as a bumper at the end of this
Yeah.
video. And then if I go to my pages, just being mindful of time here, just because we have one more feature to showcase, we have all of these other clips which were actually also generated. So if I go in here, which I actually didn't show, this is the whole video that was uploaded, which had me and Liz side by side.
Mm,
And then this has the same video, just Liz on the canvas. So
right.
yes, it is retaining all the video information here. And then we have captions, which obviously we can move to the center of the screen if we wanted. Yeah.
And when the camera
Yeah.
switches, can you change it again, or is it stuck in the middle for all of the captions? If you know what I mean. So when
Sorry,
Liz
what did
when
you what
Liz
did you
starts
say?
talking and it zooms in on Liz, those captions are going to be in front of her eyes.
Yeah, so you can actually go ahead and change. So,
Like
like
you
for
don't really
instance,
want
this
the
one.
over her mouth, right? So you can change the
Exactly.
individual ones. Yeah. Okay.
So you
Cool.
can actually bring that here and
Perfect.
it'll only change inbox
Yeah.
That
instead
Awesome.
of
That's great.
playlist.
my inbox.
That's
Yeah.
a lot of
So you
Premiere
can do
Pro
that.
features that have been brought into Express, which is really cool.
Yeah.
I love that you can do that.
Yeah. Actually, this is one of my favorite features because I have used other web apps to do that and generate captions, and it does not allow you to essentially change some of the caption positioning.
My feed is
So I
full of
think,
terrible captions on things, and
yeah.
it's like just all over
Yeah.
everybody's face, and you
Just
can't.
like
Yeah.
everyone's, yeah, you're talking and the caption's right there. So,
Yeah.
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 While it is accessible, I think being mindful of how it is also appearing and it is still
Mm,
accessible. I know the intention's there when everyone's creating the captions, but I feel like it still needs like everything can be improved upon. So I feel like this is such a great step in actually moving that position here
yeah.
with the inbox.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and last but not the least, I do want to jump in quickly to generate image. I am gonna go select a landscape, which is, yeah, I'm gonna click exit, and then I do want to go to media and then click on generate image. While this is not a new feature, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. I want to showcase generate similar, which
Mm,
is one of the new features that was announced at Adobe Max London. So I'm going to click generate image to first use some of the prompts that I have set up here. And I'm so glad that I did it ahead of time just because we don't have enough time here today. We never have enough time. We have so many things to showcase all the time. I love that.
yeah. There's so much to
Um,
talk about. We get a bit chatty as well. I think
yeah,
I get a bit
yeah.
chatty. I slow you down.
No, we both get a bit chatty. No, I want to create brand imagery for my podcast, so I thought I would put in some prompts into ChatGPT, and that this took so long just to get it right,
Mm,
and like how I wanted, and so I gave in the prompt and I asked so many questions, and I changed those prompts and experimented with those, and then I landed on some of these, and these were all tested out beforehand just for this demo. And just for the sake of time, so I want to create a minimalist workspace detail shot of a monitor corner bathed in soft natural light and neutral tones, which is kind of setting the lighting, and then shallow depth of field and make it photorealistic. Obviously, I wanted the content type to be photo, no style or composition references, and nothing in terms of style. And then I'm gonna click generate and see what comes up. So yeah. I quickly also want to showcase generate similar and then how I use those things. So while we will showcase generate similar, um, I will probably just showcase something that I made earlier when it comes to usage of that brand imagery.
cool.
So yeah, let me size this up a little bit just so we can see how that looks. That actually looks cool, but I feel like you can tell that this was AI generated just by looking at it. And then it has some options here. These are nice. I like the blinds here and that natural light coming in.
Mm,
Um, I'm gonna click on generate more just to see what comes up. Ooh, this looks like a very cool minimal setup that
it's pretty good.
that is, yeah, that's like my dream setup that I don't have. Um, yeah, let's look at more and see what comes up. Some of these are nice. I don't like so many potted plants though. They might die in my real life scenario. It's like,
Yeah,
okay,
they look very
interesting. I
green
like,
and like difficult to keep alive.
yeah, yeah,
Need some
yeah. I it's
cacti.
interesting. Yeah, I didn't even write any plants here and it
Mm,
still gave me some. That is very interesting to see. Because this is definitely different from when I experimented it and how this MacBook also looks a little not how I wanted. Okay, let's click on generate more. And as you generate more, it kind of learns from the previous generations as well
Mm.
on the fly. So I feel like that might help a little as well. So
And
let's
this is
see.
using, I think it was the next generation, right? Of Firefly has it was a big
Yeah,
announcement. So this is using Firefly 4, I believe.
four.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah. Okay. These obviously look so much better. I think I like this one. This actually looks cool. Or maybe this one. This one looks nice with these I don't know what these are called, but they look so aesthetic. Wait, what happened? What happened here? Okay, we might need to fix that. Okay, let's look at this one. Okay, let's start with this one. I feel like this is a good place for us to start as a starting point. I'm gonna make it full screen just to have that composition. I'm gonna add page and click same size. And what I'm gonna do is then duplicate the one that we had here. So this is the image that we generated. Now I can use generate similar and use a different prompt, which is photorealistic macro of a podcast mic capsule with shallow depth of field, some rim lighting, and high res detail. That's what we want.
Right.
So while I have this first image selected, I am going to click on this new icon here which says generate similar, and then it's going to create something of the same size where you can essentially use this first image as a style reference. And then using that, you can write in your prompt here and click on the generate button. So it's essentially using the first image as a style reference and then creating something using Firefly with
Right.
that, with your prompt.
Okay. So it's like an
Um,
iterative kind of way of
yeah,
generating your image. Yeah.
yeah. And yeah, that looks cool. I think I like the results here. I'm gonna click generate more. And then the one thing to note about this generate similar image is that with generate image, which is our essential generate an image using Firefly, you can go ahead and generate more variations after you've clicked out of that image. But with generate similar, if I click outside anywhere on the canvas, I cannot go back. Once it's done, it's done. You'll have to create new generate similar if you wanted to
Right.
make any changes.
Right.
And you may or may not get the same results. So yeah, that's one thing to note there. This one is really, really nice. I like the bokeh in the back too. It feels like it was actually there and that plant is like out of focus and then there's some light happening.
Yeah.
So I am gonna keep that one. I don't even wanna see that what anything else. It does prompt me whether or not I want to keep the original image. I want to keep both so that it has it in the background. Just because I want to use it for other prompts, and then I can full screen this one, and that looks cool. I
Nice.
think, yeah, that actually looks so cool. I might use that in my brand imagery. And then I'm gonna duplicate this one more time, remove the first one that I created, and then create another one which is generate similar. And this time I want to make like a vintage radio, just so that it's kind of linked to like podcasting and listening and like
Mm-hmm.
tapes and stuff. And it's just like ties into my new spirit font. So I think I want to use that with some diffuse light here. So I'm going to click on generate similar. I am also going to experiment with how generate similar works if I use a generate similar image as a reference,
Mm.
if that makes sense. So we're going to do that as well in the next one. Yeah, these are some pretty interesting results. I am going to see more here. How do you like it? Have you experimented with this, Flynn?
I haven't played with it in this sense. I've done the style referencing quite a lot, like within
Yeah.
Firefly, and played with that
Yeah.
quite a bit. But in this way, no, I haven't. And I don't think it was quite this good. Like this seems to have matched the lighting and the perspective really, really
Mm-hmm.
well. And I think
Yeah.
they might be doing something a little bit more in detail with the camera depth as well. Like I think
Mm-hmm.
it's understanding that, yeah, like the lenses or something like that, because they look like they've got the
Yeah.
perspective a bit more dialed down.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. I feel like it is so realistic that you could like it is just like mind blowing. I
Mm.
can't believe my eyes when I see something like this, and this is so good for something like a podcast. Like for instance, there's a book here and now it's open in this scene. And then some of the minimalistic things that I had, like this pot for the plant, and then there's a different pot which is like a variation of that and still a plant. I think I might go with this one.
I think the materials might be It's hard to
Yeah.
pick exactly what has improved because it's probably just generally everything. But that
Yeah.
fabric that would be within like it's probably like it's so much closer. Like I think in the first and second generation, it would have been
Hmm.
all obviously it would have been all crazy. But
Yeah.
even that the microphone is really good. Now there's a little bit of an imperfection in the middle bit, but you could fix that up as
Yeah.
well. But everything down
Yeah.
to it, like it makes it looks a bit worn. Like it doesn't look
Hmm.
like it's fresh off the factory floor either. Like it looks like
Yeah.
it's had a little bit of wear and tear, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's some new stuff going on, which I really like.
Yeah, no, I'm on the same page. I personally love that the colors and the lighting is
Mm,
so on point. Like all of these do look like they were shot on the same day with the same lighting
yeah,
scenarios and stuff, and I think that's what I really like about it. And now I think of an experiment with how this looks with our second gen image. So this was created using Generate Similar, and now I'm going to use this as an iteration to create Generate Similar, and I'm going to see how that works. I'm going to click on Generate Similar and then click on this text area, and I want to create like a bokeh of like fairy lights with a neutral backdrop with a dreamy textured background. So it's quite a complicated prompt, which is as opposed to how a lot of people prompt typically, but I did want to like push it to the limits and see what happens and if it breaks anything. I just wanted to see what the limit is. So yeah, I haven't actually done this iteration, which it kind of seems like it is trying to understand um what the iteration was. This is different to what I generated earlier today,
right.
where I was experimenting with stuff. But I did want to showcase that it still learns from the lighting that you have, and this output is still usable. Like I can still use this bokeh in like a background and then overlay text on it
Mm,
with like a gradient, like we did earlier in the stream. But yeah, there is definitely room for improvement with like the second iteration, I think,
mm,
in terms of what is the output. So why don't we keep this as our input, and then I want to use the first image as our generate similar and give it the same prompt that we did about the lighting and click on generate and see what comes up and see how that's different.
yeah.
Just to showcase how the iteration works and how everything looks with the iteration as well. Obviously, I think generate similar is it. I'm not too sure. Is it in beta right now? No, right?
No, I think
Generate.
not. I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
Generate Similar's out. Yeah, fully out.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So now when we see this image, this is getting the style reference from the first image, which had a desk and it had a whole layout.
Right.
It had a window scene. It had like depth of field, which the second image lagged because it was a close up shot with like a vintage radio. And that is why the generated image was also a close up shot because it was kind of learning from that style.
Mm,
And in this case, I think I really, really like that because it kind of gives me some texture, it gives me bokeh, it gives me like depth of field, and yeah, it just overall just makes more sense in the kind of brand imagery that I wanted to generate. Maybe I just keep this one and then click on and I'm clicking replace. So let's go ahead and see what all we generated. So this was the first image we generated with generate image. Like I said, you can go ahead and see what you created here and then can maybe even generate more if you want it by clicking here at the bottom.
mm,
That's the first one. Then click the right arrow key. This is the second one, which was generate similar. We generated a podcast mic, which there are some imperfections here, which you can obviously go ahead and remove object or then insert object, and then you can replace some of these
mm,
here within Adobe Express as well. And then looking at the next one, which is the vintage radio, which is the same lighting, the same blinds, and like flowers, pottery inspiration, and the desk. Maybe I want to move it a little bit further down and then crop it like so, just to build that kind of scene here, or maybe
yeah.
even make it slightly zoomed in. And then for the next one, we have some bokeh lights here. Maybe you can use something like that again for your brand imagery. And then the last one was an iteration, which you can also use for your brand imagery. So maybe you had like text going on, and you can use this just as a textured background for some things. And I think we've covered all the new episodes. Flynn, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we have covered
All the
everything, right?
features, yeah, I think so. I think that's yeah. I don't think yeah. Then there's always the little stealth things like it is a new Firefly model as well. Like sometimes these
Yeah.
things can kind of get missed with all the feature
Mm-hmm.
announcements. So like it's a whole new model. So even if going to Firefly .com as well, like you can experiment with that, and you can obviously there you can go back through the different versions, so you can flick.
Mhm.
Should be able to. Oh, I haven't actually looked at this before I announced that you can do it. Um, you certainly could always like flick back from.
I think you
You
can.
should be able
Yeah.
to, unless who knows. But I haven't tried it. But
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
previous iterations, you could always go back and see, hey, what would happen if I did this prompt in version 1 compared to
Yep.
version 4 as well. So that's always a fun thing to see. The differences. So you can go and check that out. Things like the fonts as well, like massive, massive font drop as well, and all of that
Yeah.
is part of Adobe Express. So I think it's quite like we've got all the features that Anika has so well demonstrated, but then there's also all this other stuff that's happened. So it's a good time to kind of revisit your workflow, a good time to have a look at some fancy new fonts and some new font foundries that have joined, Adobe fonts that you can use across every app,
Mm.
which is crazy to think of. If you went back 5 years or 10 years, it's kind of crazy
Yeah.
what we have just in our hands, like free to use, royalty free and stuff like that too. So yeah,
I like
lots.
this one. This is so cool. I
That's
like
cool.
the.
Do you ever see a
I
font
also
and you
like
think
this.
this is awesome, and then you put it in your project and you're like, why doesn't mine look that good? And you
Yeah.
realize that someone styled it so well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we covered everything, but I did want to showcase one last thing with
Okay.
how you can use a generate similar brand imagery in your podcast marketing. So I actually used the same prompts and generated some images earlier today. So this was one of the images that we started with, and then moving on to the next one. I used the same exact image to make a quotation that I can share from the podcast
Right.
episode, something that Liz said, that rejection does not freak her out anymore. So I used that, and then I said this is the episode, and then put in my title. I added some treatments to this, which is also one of the new features where there are Photoshop filters. I think this is something that we missed out on talking about, but we have so many new Photoshop filters built into Adobe Express now as well. So I used one of those, I think, in one of the other ones, but I love the golden hour. It kind of goes in with my
Yeah.
neutral minimalistic beige vibe. So I use that and then made some blur effects here too. So I went to position and then just blurred some adjustments just so it looks like it's in the background and just like had some depth, more depth to it. And I also added the gradient with the same add-on that we did earlier. And then moving on to the next one, some experiments with notebooks. Not quite how I expected it to be, so needs more generations for it to see. And then I generated like bottles to see how that would look with the succulent and like lighting and how that would look with like reflections, which
Yep.
I think is doing a pretty good job there with like even the succulent reflection here. um a close-up shot of the desk, and then one more shot just to have. So my idea with this brand imagery was to have lots of negative space just to have text overlays because
Right.
that's where I'm going with it. That is why all my prompts look like this. Your generations may or may not be something similar. And then this is like a different angle of the same desk where I'm like, oh, I'm looking at it from a different side.
Mm.
And then the podcast mic, which I think this one is really, really good. And so I use that to create a behind the scenes of a design podcast. So
Yeah.
I
Nice.
made it like a reel cover that I can use with my branding, which is really nice. And then another size of that using resize. And I actually used the AI resize feature to generate the vertical version of this because this was limited and this is where the image ends. But for this, I actually use a vertical version, which I can showcase really, really quickly. So if I go to resize, I can go Instagram Reel. I can click on expand image and then I can click on duplicate and resize. The one thing here with expand image is that your image should touch the bounds of your canvas size. And that's how the technology works, where it learns from the bounds of the canvas, similar to how it works in Photoshop, and then it generates and expands your image. So it creates variations and then you can explore and generate even more
Yeah.
versions of it.
Not bad.
Yeah, it does a really good job.
Mm.
I think it took me a couple of generate more things just to get it where I wanted it to. And then I was like, yeah, we're ready to go. Let's do it. So I ended up with I'm gonna discard this just to showcase what I did. I ended up making like this gradient and then this image was something like this, which I just scaled up.
Yep.
Because I had to overlay text on it. So I didn't actually care about how specific I wanted to get with
Yep.
that image.
Yep.
um yeah, and then some of these the vintage radio, this one was really cool, and then
That's
I
cool.
used that for an episode drop thing, and I was like, yeah, let me use this. This
That's
looks very
nice.
cool.
Great.
Yeah, and then the bokeh lights, I use that for another episode as well, just to create that recurring kind of content.
Mm.
And I think that's where Adobe Express comes in, where I love doing something like this so quickly and easily because now I can even share this directly from here and schedule this post to anywhere I wanted to share on
Yeah.
social media as well.
It's really cool, and I think it's a great demonstration of why something like Generate Similar is so valuable, like such a
Yeah.
useful tool, because you can start with literally nothing, and then you can create this cohesive like
Mhm.
campaign or like roll out of a brand, if you know
Yeah.
what it visually would look like, and you're obviously going for this nice warm fuzzy kind of feel,
Hmm.
obviously aimed at creators, people that might be not working in a studio, perhaps working at home. You
Yeah.
kind of got the target audience in mind, and now you've got all these visuals that you can just generate, yeah, to bring that across. And I think that Generate Similar works really, really well because you're not going through stock library trying to find stuff that looks similar. You can actually
Yeah.
create it, and for the purpose that you want it, which is really cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. This
Mm.
custom imagery, I think, is definitely one of my favorite features. Just to get that cohesive brand out there is so important,
Yeah.
especially now. I feel like it kind of dictates your tone of voice and then also builds trust with your audience as well. Just because it seems like, oh yeah, I saw something similar last week, and now this kind of seems like the same vibe and energy, and I feel like that also builds trust with your audience and community. So
Yeah.
yeah, try out Adobe Express and all the new features. I'm excited. And if anyone in the chat or replay watchers try out some of the new features, put comments, put questions, and we'll be happy to answer them.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, Anika. Thank you so much for covering everything. And of course, all this stuff was announced at Adobe Max London, which just happened last week, at the time of our live stream. So go back and check that out. There's lots of little bits and pieces. So many of your favorite apps have had lots of updates. And I'm so glad that we had a little bit of time to spend with Anika so she could break down all the stuff that happened on Express for us, because that was really cool. Super, super great. Love seeing it. Thank you so much, Anika. And everyone else for watching as well. So we'll hope to catch you at the next Adobe Live. Maybe we'll do a couple more sessions where we recap what has happened in some of the other apps. But Anika, again, thank you so much for joining us.
Of course, thank you for having me, Flynn. As usual, I had a blast being here and excited to be on next month.
Very excited. Okay, we'll see you again next time on Adobe Live. Bye.
Awesome.